Right, morena everyone. We will make a start. Can you hear me okay? All right, morena everyone. It is 9:30. We will make a start. Welcome to everyone who's in the chambers and to those online as well. We've got Angus from Kiwi Rail online. Welcome.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Right, we will start with the karakia.
Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te toa, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hi ake ana te ura, io, te uka, te hauhu, te hei mauri ora.
Thank you, Eva-Lisa. Yeah, you will notice that we've got Eva-Lisa up the front with us today from Hamilton City Council, which is quite historic, really, having staff from a different council assist us in this meeting today. So it's a true sign of partnership and collaboration. So thank you, Eva-Lisa, for stepping in. Yeah. All right. Are there any apologies?
Well, we've got an apology from Bill Waisley for absence today as the chair, and in his absence, Deputy Chair Angela has taken the role on.
Okay. Do we have a mover? Oh, and Jess, thank you. Thank you. Maxine, thank you, Liz. All those in favour? Against? Carried. All right, confirmation of the agenda. I have a mover for that. Thank you, Chair Pamela. And thank you, Liz. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Are there any new disclosures of interest? No, moving on. Forum? No. Moving on. All right, I might just pause there because I forgot to welcome Caroline. Carolyn, thank you for coming and welcome. So do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Makes me feel like I should sing a song, right? He's going to be my best friend today. My name is Carolyn Hooper from Ngāti Wairere, born and raised in a small place close to my heart called Tauhei, but I'm here on behalf of Ngā Karawatua o Te Waka.
Welcome, thank you. Right, confirmation and receipt of minutes. Eugene, would you like to move that? Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Maxine. Thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Right, into the meaty stuff. Can I welcome Phil and Sarah up to the table? And we'll move on to our Metro Spatial Plan progress update, which is on page 22 of your agenda. And we're very lucky we'll have Phil and Sarah for the next 3 items.
Thank you. Kia ora, everyone. Given that we've got a trio of MSP related papers, I think given that the first paper is just a short update, which I think a lot of people have seen, happy for that to be taken as read, and we can go into the detail of on projects in the next two papers, unless people rather do it the other way around.
Sounds good. Does anyone have any specific questions on that one? No? Okay. Do we have a mover for that first? Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Pamela. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried.
Okay, are we on to the next paper?
We are.
Excellent. So the next paper is regarding the Climate Emergency Response Fund, specifically the VKT reduction plan. Again, I'm happy to take this paper as read. The one thing that I will add is that the current draft GPS that came out last week does have VKT reduction plans in it as a major component of the urban and regional development component of the GPS, along with the climate emissions response stuff. Without further ado, any questions?
Do you want to just put your mic down? Yep, that's the one.
So, do the VKT reduction plans include detailed consideration of demographic makeup as provided by Stats New Zealand, i.e. poverty, age and disability, footpath and street crossing opportunities of catchment areas surrounding bus stops and hubs to ensure these people can access public transport as VKT targets are implemented?
It's a very good question. May I answer through the chair? Okay, so the short answer to that is they're operating at a very high level in terms of their guidelines at the moment, and guidance is coming out as we're developing them. However, there is an equity lens that's identified through that piece of work. So I would anticipate that things coming through that will look at things with an equity lens. The other thing to note is that here in the future-proof sub-region, a lot of this has been intertwined with the Metro Spatial Plan Transport PBC business case. The only exception to that, and I can see Vishal looking at me from the other side of the room, is North Waikato, South Auckland have a particular carve-out within that VKT reduction piece of work, with funding allocated to look at VKT reduction for that top area of the district. Within the MSP, equity and access are all included as part of the KPIs for that programme. So I would anticipate that we would be looking at that once we get into the detail of what the next 12 years of that programme looks like and where we're allocating resource.
Thank you. I just had a question about what, we talk about parking within here. Are we also looking at congestion charging as a lever that we could pull?
The original MSP Transport BBC did include for a additional charge, and what it was called is I think it was a clean zone or a clean air zone type charge. So it can be included and looked at in more detail. But yeah, I mean, it's in there. I think the feeling of the group at the time that we delivered that PBC is we included a charge for the CBD area. We haven't looked more widely than that because at the time it was clear that that would need to be something that was also driven at a national level for it to be deliverable. So yes, we've looked at it. It's in there.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? If not, we will look to receive this one. I'm happy to move this one. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Eugene. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. On to the next one. Thank you.
Okay, so this one's the really exciting one. Again, I'm happy to take this report as read. I think there will need to be a minor change potentially to the third recommendation in here. And I can explain that as table 2 of the report is this LTP period. We're anticipating getting that work done in the next 12 months. And we are all trying to finalise our budgets right now to ensure that that work gets done. So the recommendation needs to be adjusted to reflect the fact that it is securing funding for this year. So in your plans for this year. I should also highlight that there is a lot of work going on currently within the group. That is the TWG, which has staff representatives from each of your councils, to look at aligning and balancing the LTP request for the MSP. So although in here, as part of attachment 1, we've identified specific projects, there are also pieces of work that need to happen that we're currently working through the financial profile of with each council. The other thing to note, and I'll briefly touch on as part of this, is guidance for the NLTF this time round for RLTPs is that you shouldn't necessarily cut programs that you believe you should do just because you can't provide the local share. What that means is that where we don't believe we have enough money to potentially deliver the accelerated MSP program or North Waikato, South Auckland pieces of work, don't necessarily just cut them completely from your submission to the RLTP, and Nigel will touch on this later, but include them as a table item, because what we're finding increasingly is that Crown funding is becoming available at 100% funding, which means you don't require the local share, and SURF's been a great example of that in the past 3 years. So it may well be that we as a team start to profile the MSP work and say, well, we think it may be too hard in the NLTP period, and you may come to that conclusion through your LTP deliberations, although there's a minimum requirement that we're going to try and aim to get. To accelerate it, we could also put in an acceleration table into the RLTP for this particular programme. So sorry, that was quite a long explanation, but I just wanted to cover that base.
Yeah. Hey, look, thanks for that. And look, I guess for us, that's a really good heads up because we were lucky enough to be a recipient of some SURF funding. We've been able to do some great cycleways. We're about to do some great cycleways in both Cambridge and Kiki. We wouldn't have been able to have done that if we were having to fund that entirely ourselves. So how soon, I know it's like a crystal ball gazing, we're in an election year as well, but in terms of our LTPs right now, this is a really hard place for us to kind of understand what projects we should keep in, which projects we should keep out. So it's your strong suggestion for anything that we should keep our, priority sort of projects, mode shift, that kind of stuff in our LTPs, and the hope that there might be 100% funding coming from central government.
That's what we're being told to do. So just be mindful as you go through the LTP process, not to wipe out anything on your must list just because you don't have local share. What we probably are not being told is don't include everything that you've ever wanted. So a certain degree of, analysis around must, shoulds and coulds is how some people are doing it. So something like that. But we're being given strong signals that the NLTF will not be the only fund potentially. So just bear in mind that there may be other funding streams that come through.
Right. Any other questions? Oh, thank you, Maxine.
Look, I had a question with regard to frequent services and how we might align LTP funding for the infrastructure and also for the running of the service, how that might happen through here and what we might be able to expect coming in the next 2, 3, 5 years. Know that and can see from reports in here that there's great success when we've got fast and frequent. And want to have a bit more of I guess, a commitment from the committee. So if possible, speed that up and get more of them.
I think your question may be aligned to a piece of work that is included in this paper, and that piece of work is called PT Pathways. And I won't inflame you by saying it's an indicative business case, but it is an indicative business case. And the purpose of that work is to ensure that the next 4 NLTPs have that pathway, so it's clear what the timing is around services, how that best fits in with your infrastructure planning, how that might affect budgeting, so that that's a much clearer vision for the partners moving forward. And this is all really as a result of the Transport PBC identifying that that's a thing that we should do. That's been embedded in the RPTP. And now we need to look at how we can deliver that. Because the other component that PT Pathways will cover is the alignment of those services with other investments. So, for example, significant Three Waters investment might be happening on certain corridors, and we want to avoid doing something and then Three Waters digging it up, or vice versa. We also want to make sure that that investment is aligned with where growth looks like it will be occurring. So that piece of work is going to be really key to just pulling everything together into one place and saying a good order of doing this will be in years 6 to 9 that we'll look at these areas of the city, and 9 to 12 we'll look at these. A really good example of that is, for example, Unilinks and Schools Links. So those are already programmed in, and they were identified in attachment 1 as being key. But with respect to later components of a bus rapid transit network, much of whether we would need that bus rapid transit network depends on how effective the walk cycle is. So if Schools Link and Unilink deliver really high mode shift to walk cycle and active modes, we might never see the need for anything other than a frequent service on some of those corridors, because the existing network that we've put in is so good, and it meets the travel pattern requirement. So it's those types of things that this PT Pathways work will help determine, and I think it will give everyone a much clearer view on what that looks like for the next.
And in terms of reporting on through this committee, how does that generally happen? Is there the possibility to add to our motion to include a piece that would ask staff to do a bit more of that report back to us, have a think about how that might, timing of that might be, and how to keep us on that?
Yeah, I think the short answer to that is yes. And we absolutely want to seek elected member feedback through that business case process. That will be fundamental to ensuring that we all sign it off and everybody's happy with it. So yes, there'll be 2 components to that, I suspect, when we start to scope out that work. One will be informal workshops, and one will be where there's a major decision point around that IBC. It will absolutely come back to the committee. So we will step through that business case with this committee, absolutely.
We don't need to add that to our motion today, you don't think? In terms of the alignment of regional council, city council on it.
Programs of work that then get highlighted here for next LT, seeking clarity. Councillor Van as to is it program business case or is it LTP investment that this committee will then see prior to each of our councils then present
I think it is much more aligned to our LTP processes, which are current and happening now, and haven't necessarily got the right information at the right time. It's difficult to crystal ball gaze to be able to put figures into an LP or align intentions without having a good understanding of what the possible is.
So Sarah, can I just, is that something that staff are able to do to bring back
Yes.
to this committee?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it would be actually really good for us to be able to do that. Just to give you some context, this paper, as I say, it covered off some projects that we knew were identified in the PBC. It's covered off the next 12 months of work. There is work going on at a staff level right now to try and align the LTP program for the next 3-6 years in some detail and then beyond. So actually it would be great for us to have the opportunity to put that in front of this committee at the next meeting, because by that point we should have done a rally round and our assessment and our profiles. So that would be wonderful.
So just send some wording to you.
Yeah, that'd be. Liz, did you have anything further? No. That's fine. Councillor O'Leary, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Chair Angela, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm mindful I'm an alternate at this meeting. Just a point on, it leads on from what Maxine was saying. My concern is that a lot of this is long-term thinking, like over the next 10 years, 12 years. And obviously, there's some information in here about vehicle kilometres travelled, reductions that are required, and how even the Metro Spatial Plan itself, we've just got a huge gap there. And so what I'd like to point out is my huge concern about that, and that my particular interest is in the next 3 years. The 3 years of the 10-year plan that actually really matter, because it's the part that is locked in then, and the rest can still be edited. So, this afternoon we're launching Meteor service, fast, frequent service. When it comes to emission reduction in the transport space, Hamilton is the place to start really well. It's when people come in from the outskirts to Hamilton, they need to be able to get around as well. So I'm mindful that in the Regional Connections Committee previous triennium, there was a plan for, I think it was 3 rapid services over 3 years, and we only ended up delivering on 1. And so we are already behind some intentions that were set. I would want to see pretty much, it would be an adequate response to climate change. At this point in time, I think it's 1 a month. I realize that's not real. 6 in the next 3 years would be quite more realistic, and something that we should aim for. And so it's what's happening in the next 3 years to make that happen. And so this is more of a mainly Hamilton City Council. So if that could be robust and piece that we're working on, that would be appreciated. Just thanks for the ability to make that comment.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Nicol. Yeah, I think, I know last time we were really ambitious in our long-term plans, and things didn't quite line up. I know we had 3 fast and frequent routes planned last triennium, and we're only just now delivering 1 of them. So I think, that alignment between infrastructure and services is really critical. And my favourite one would be bus priority. Sorry. Bus priority, whatever that would look like, at traffic lights, bus lanes, that sort of thing. And I know that that's HCC, but it's also that MSP driven work that we really need to get right for that long-term ability. We don't want our buses getting stuck in all the same congestion. We want to make bus travel really attractive and competitive. So how could we advance that sooner?
So the next 3 years do include things within HCC's programme to put bus priority in, as far as I'm aware. And as I say, part of this LTP conversation that's happening at the moment between staff is looking at those places. It's worth noting that there are 3 frequent lines in Hamilton. There's the Orbiter. There will now be the Meteor, yay, and then there'll be the Comet. And at the moment, where HCC are focusing their attention is on the Meteor and the Comet routes in the next 3-year period. A lot, we have some plans for additional services as well. So the Rotatuna rocket's on the list and is in attachment 1 to this paper. And that will cause some other effects on that network to the north of the city. The reality is that the MSP work will look at some form of acceleration there, but we can only go as fast as we believe the resource allows. We can table an option that goes faster than that, and we probably will. But it then becomes not just money, it becomes more than money required to deliver that. Hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Adrian.
Yeah, probably that last comment actually really resonates with me, because obviously sitting on the outside of this, I sort of sit with a perhaps a different lens, and it's all very well being aspirational and then throwing these things. It's about being realistic with your strategy, because at the end of the day, you're rating people for stuff that you may not achieve. So there's a fine balance there. So I just sort of put attention on, yes, having that strategic view. So whatever you do now is going to align with what you plan, but be realistic in what you can achieve. Because I hear 3 things were put in and only 1's being achieved now. Now, there might be a variety of reasons for that. And like you just alluded to, Angela, it's not just about money, it's about resource as well, and being realistic. So I really encourage some reality in there as well. Be fair and not be over, it's nice to be aspirational, but not be over expectant on our journey.
Thank you. Councillor Eugene.
Thank you, Chair. Just following on from the previous 2 conversations, thanks, Sarah, for this update. But I know that we get best bang for buck in HCC. That makes sense. But reality side of things, so we do a lot of planning and all of that, and actually what happens on the ground doesn't. So projects you talked about, Councillor Jen, was also same as in the Waikato district as well. We've been for about 2 years, even a bit longer, working on some improvements with PT in the north, in Tamahere Matangi area, and also the Raglan service. And I know it's resource as well, bus drivers, etc. But all of this planning, I know we've got to do it, but we sort of need to step back and do the stuff that we've said we're going to do, and do them, because we do great people for that, and we've got communities getting pretty frustrated because first things we've talked about and consulted with them are not happening. So we need to sort of put a lot of focus into doing the stuff we said we're going to do.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Eugene. Yeah, Sarah, I like the idea of having 2 steps. So this is what we can achieve, and this is what's possible as well. Eva-Lisa, did you want to add anything?
So further to the conversations that have just been had, our regional public transport plan is a good document for staff to take away and actually have a look at what was planned and approved and bring that forward, and then understand how that the changes, if any, the MS has impacted that, but then also review which services have been done and have been actually included in current long-term plan funding to actually have in place, and then that can be included in the staff report that is brought back to this committee. So it actually highlights where investment has happened and has occurred, but then actually for this committee to decide the priorities for that for that future, not just for Hamilton City, but for the wider Waikato region, so that we do bring those frequent services to Cambridge, to Te Awamutu, Matamata, and so that we can. So we'll work with staff to make sure that the RP is reviewed.
Thank you, Evelisa. Sarah.
Can I just clarify something through the chair?
Yeah.
So the next piece of work that we will do will give an outline around LTP funding related to those programs. We can bring forward what we think is a guesstimate on an accelerated version of that, et cetera, The fine detail of that will not be determined. We absolutely have to do the planning work to make that happen. So I'm just a little bit reticent about talking about individual services as part of that process. We will put a line item in that says, we think the OPEX cost of the PT services for the Hamilton Metro Spatial Plan and North Waikato areas may increase by this many millions. In order to pick which services we should be investing in, we need to have done that piece of work so we can give you the full picture of why you might want to invest in that corridor before that corridor. So if you can bear with us and let us get through that PT Pathways piece of work, and we will do it fully engaged with you as elected members. We absolutely must do that. But we, for the LTP process, we will literally be putting headlines in and identifying some constraints around those headlines.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there any further questions? No, if not, do I have a mover? Now, Maxine, are you happy with number 4? Number 4 and, oh, 2. 2 and 4.
I've ordered these resolutions by where they land with their respective organisations. So obviously the first 2 will be performed by this committee under its delegations, and the other 2 need to go back to the authorities for them to resolve, should they wish to, for that to happen.
The year 1, it's actually in this, so it's this year's plan budgets, not year 1 of the long-term plan budgets, as in next long-term plan. Just to be clear, this money is needed in this financial year, effectively. So they need to be budgeted in
out
now.
year 1.
It's not long-term plans at all, it's annual plan. Yeah.
So current. Year 3. Do you want financial year in there? Right, are you happy?
Just question how you can include values in a plan that's moved. Yeah, no, I don't agree with that. It's semantics maybe, but it's still an annual plan is done and dusted. We're in it, so that's irrelevant. We can't go back. No.
If I may, through the
Yeah,
chair.
clarity,
So
please.
in some people's annual plans, it is currently embedded. In others, it may be coming, or it may be part of the roading budget, or it may not have been included as part of the roading budget. So for most people, it's coming through in the roading budgets. And what we just want to make sure is that it is being ring fenced in those budgets. So you will have included for something because this is quite detailed, right? So you wouldn't have had a line item that's like IBC. In future, I'm hoping that we will be there, but what I'm trying to ensure is that it's ring fenced within council budgets.
What I'm hearing, sorry, what I'm hearing is that it should already be there and we just don't want it spent on something else.
In some cases, yes, it is already there. In other cases, it's buried. So we just want to daylight it and make sure that it isn't spent on something else. Yeah.
Right.
And can I, through the chair, suggest that instead of the word includes the values, can we just say that notes or reflect that the values should be included? Just so that it doesn't trigger a review of an annual plan. Yeah, which is the concern that's being raised through the committee. So it's just finding the word include to reflects the values.
Right, are we comfortable with that wording? Right, do I have a mover? Oh, you've done that? All right, well, we'll get it through. All those in favour? Aye, against? Carried. All right, thank you, Phil,
Thank
and
you.
thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Phil.
Phil. Our next item is Te Huia passenger rail.
Morena koutou. The Te Huia passenger rail service paper includes 6 items to talk through this morning. So there are also some attachments on those. Can I suggest that we work through each of the issues on the paper individually and take questions
Yeah.
as we go?
Good idea.
So the first item on the paper relates to the recent restrictions for Te Huia into central Auckland and provides you with some information on the impact of those on passenger numbers. But before I take questions on that item, I'll just add that the free week that was offered when Te Huia was able to get back into central Auckland was the most successful week we've had. We had not far off 4,000 passengers that week, which was well above our normal numbers for an average weekday, an average term week.
Just on that one, was there any patterns that you noticed, northbound, southbound passenger numbers?
Interestingly, yes, there were a significant number of people who were travelling from Auckland down to Hamilton for a couple of hours, and we saw, we have some pictures actually of the number of people getting off at Frankton Station for a couple of hours, and also people getting off at Rotakari for a couple of hours in Hamilton. So it's the first time we've really seen very significant numbers of people doing that, and it was very encouraging that people wanted to do that. We saw people walking around the lake and walking on the Western Rail Trail into the town centre and other things. So
Very cool. So that just proves the demand for southbound from Auckland down to the Waikato.
certainly, yes.
Thank you.
The notice has now been lifted and the service has returned to a normal run. Angela, would it be possible if Angus has anything he wants to add from KiwiRail's perspective on that topic?
Yes. Yeah, Angus.
Kia ora koutou. Look, just I suppose to reiterate a couple of points that were canvassed during the episode, for want of a better term. In the end, the regulator is an independent regulator. The decisions that they take are entirely up to them, and they made the call, and that was okay. We spent a huge amount of time working with them to make sure that they had everything they need, and they lifted the condition because they knew that we were able to operate safely within Auckland. We have made changes, as you heard, if those of you who attended the session with Paul Ashton and me and a couple of others a few weeks ago. The electronic train protection that was installed last year in time for the shift from a double locomotive consist to a single locomotive consist, we've turned that on, so it's operating currently when it's within Auckland. That's an additional layer of protection because it means that if a train ever passes a red signal, the brakes automatically turn on. And we've also done some additional driver familiarity, route familiarity, training with the drivers. So the focus from our team on how to operate that train safely is incredibly high. The on-time performance of that train is incredibly high. And, we'll get to it later on there, but I'm incredibly delighted by the feedback from the customers. And in the end, that's always been our focus here, is to make sure that the customers have a service that works well for them and operates safely. So I'll stop there because I don't want to recover ground that we've been on already.
Thank you, Angus.
So happy to answer any questions on that item if people have them.
I had a question for Angus, just with regard to the driver familiarity, the route familiarity, and that there was 1 or 2 sessions that were promised to be able to capture up all of the drivers that might be involved in working on that route. Can you just confirm the attendance and perhaps give us a bit of feedback on how that happened and what might have been involved?
Do you mean the workshops with the drivers?
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. So we ran workshops with them. We had a driver that ran the entire route, and it was filmed, and so everyone watched it, and particular discussions around any points that might be, but unusual or unexpected. I think maybe just to step it back a moment, because of the rail network rebuild, there's a huge amount of work going on in Auckland and a different route that's being used. So that was a focus as well, because we wanted people to know that as things change around, given sections of line that get shut and different particular pieces go on, that everyone is clear about which way they need to go. So we had those workshops, everyone attended, that it was all completed before we resumed services on the 7th or so of August.
Thanks, Angus.
Thank you. Anything else on this one? Yeah, can I just say that, I really appreciate how well staff from all the agencies work together to get to Huia back quickly, going down to downtown Auckland. We really heard from passengers that they do value getting into downtown Auckland, and the response from Aucklanders coming down as well really gives me hope for the future of the service. So, thank you.
Thank you. So the next item on the paper this morning is to receive the indicative business case that has been underway, led jointly by Waikato Regional Council and Waikato District Council, investigating potential railway stations in the north of the Waikato District. We've been working on that for some time. There's a summary of results within the paper, but the full report is there. Happy to answer any questions, and this is an item B item, so there'll be as a resolution on this as we get through.
Thank you. Councillor Eugene.
Yeah, thanks. Look, great the work that's been done on the IBC. We've had this report received at infrastructure at WDC, so very well supported. It's come back and thrown up a few options there, but the third option is the Tuako site. I believe that we need to work together around the funding issues around that constraint moving forward. But next thing is the detailed business case. We move on to any future rail platforms, etc., as the detailed business case, which got here in the recommendation to support. So it all comes down to collaborative funding outcomes, and I know we've all got huge constraints with our LTPs coming up. It just seems to get harder and harder every 3 years. So look, as a WDC, very supportive of this moving forward. It has a lot of future implications with rail, AT, electrification coming further south. Those stations will be used in the future through an AT network, if as well as Te Huia currently now. So, yeah, great work that's been done so far, and look to getting support with this committee and that to advance this further. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Eugene. David, do you have any comment on the FAR rating?
I literally just said to Sarah, she's going to ask me about that. Look, all I can say is the draft GPS is out. Very excitingly, in the draft GPS, there's a new activity class called interregional travel. Read into that whatever you like, but it certainly makes it a hell of a lot easier to think Te Huia in a very neat box. It now fits into an activity class that is very clearly targeted at the type of service that Te Huia provides. I can't give any more certainty than that, to be honest, and it'll be post-election that we have a sense of what a final GPS looks like. What I can say is pretty confidently 80 to 90% of what's in this GPS is pretty central. It's pretty safe post-election. And interregional travel has got pretty good bipartisan support. When you get into light rail versus, that's where the politics starts to play, but in principle, okay. I can't give you any more certainty than that. That is our risk, right? As we start to talk about, do we have more stops and things? Actually, do we even have certainty of the ongoing bar rate? And we won't be able to tell you that until we landed the GPS and got the activity classes. There you go. There.
Just to add, we're meeting Charles.
Sarah, do you want to just bring your microphone?
Sorry.
towards you?
We're meeting
Thank
with Vishal on Tuesday next week to talk about the extra stops as well, just to get a bit of insight from Waikato District Council on what, because I know you've put a paper forward.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's really important that when we do look at stations in the North Waikato, we look further than what Te Huia is just offering at the moment. Auckland's right on right on the doorstep. Electrification will come further south. Yeah, we really need to future-proof this area of our region and give those communities the best that we could give them. Andy, do you want to comment?
Thank you, Angela. Yeah, look, I think, my sort of, I was talking to Angela and a couple of others earlier on. I just wonder how much work has actually been done, I guess, to consider the impacts of, firstly, what the CRL means for the existing rail network within Auckland and the increase in train numbers and the increase in size of our EMUs from 6 cars to 9. And so what that means in timing and things. And so, I'd hate to see Te Huia get to a point where it's chugging up the tracks and then coming in behind, 5-minute peak time services and everything just stops. And so your whole time travel stuff. And so, we're having enough troubles with level crossing considerations with the CRL, which weren't factored in when they first started to build it. And so, I guess for me, it'd be great to see that interregional public transport strategy. So we're in the middle of creating a integrated transport plan for Auckland. And I sit on the steering group for that with the mayor. And I mean, it'd be great to be able to get some sort of push from here to say, actually, we need to spread that a little bit further, that Auckland and Waikato regions actually need to be looking at how we, I guess, intersect our public transport. It's probably the purpose why I'm here. And so, I'd love to see a push for that. Because it's, we've got to get away from this, it's governance without boundaries. We've got to look at communities about how we connect. And so, it's really, really important. And for me, we can sit here and throw ideas up all day. We need to probably create a bit of a strategy for how we integrate what we talk about here and what we talk about at Auckland Transport and at Auckland Council, so that we actually get the best thing for the people in the areas, because it's, it's just the population in this, this part of the world's massive, and we've got to be connected. So we've got to do it right. So, yeah, I'd just love to see that work done.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Angus, online. Oh, unmute yourself if you can.
Sorry, I dropped my hand and then didn't realise that I was still muted. Just want to throw some light endorse what Andy's just been saying, and throw some light on one thing that came through in the draft GPS, which is we've received some funding to do the detailed business case, but more importantly, the actual detailed engineering design for the 3rd and 4th main lines in Auckland. It is the highest ranked priority for us and also Auckland Transport when it comes to rail investment in that region, and it is critically important actually for Te Huia and freight flows into Auckland, but most importantly for the huge number of passenger trains that need to run up and around that city. So in order for us to be able to get the capacity for Te Huia to keep running, or to keep running alongside a growing number of trains in Auckland, 3rd and 4th main is absolutely critical. Its time has come, so we've got funding to start the work on that, which is a really positive piece. I must make the point as well from a bipartisan perspective, it's identified in the National Party's transport policy too as a future opportunity that's bloody important for Auckland. So yes, totally right. I think for Waikato it will be great in your RLTP just to be endorsing those particular pieces of investment, because while it's outside of your region, the benefit, the spin-off of capacity increasing in Auckland is just huge.
Yeah, thank you, Angus. Phil, have you got some more detail to add as well?
Yeah, just a couple of things. The first is that at the last PT subcommittee, you received the addendum to the Te Huia business case, which included a significant amount of work aligned with the work that's going on in Auckland on the City Rail link, to make sure through all of the modelling that Te Huia can get into central Auckland after the opening of the City Rail link. So just we've been participating in that project with Auckland to make sure that Te Huia has slots. Both at 3, 6 and 9 car configurations. And that report is there now. And we've met with the team that are working on the CRL and the post-CRL business case for Auckland since the last meeting, just to talk to them about those recommendations of the committee. And they are confirming to us that that is all included within the final runs of that model. In terms of the partnership, the Regional Transport Committee has recently submitted to the Auckland Regional Public Transport Plan in strong support for a true 2 regional model. I don't know whether councillors want to speak to that, but the messaging in that submission has quite strongly been that there's value in the 2 regions working very, very closely together, both from a operational perspective, but potentially also a funding perspective to deliver a true bi-directional service over a period of time.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. And I think just on that as well, I know that last training in the Te Huia working group, we did talk about, stopping at Pukekohe and picking up passengers both ways as well. So yeah, really keen to work with Auckland a bit more on Te Huia and yeah, make it work for everyone going northbound and southbound as well. Eugene, and then I've got David.
Thanks, Chair. Just wondering whether we needed to, you've added a bit more to the conversation about the work that's been done collaboratively. So, but I was just wondering, listening to Andy mention about working together, boundaryless approach. Do we need anything in a resolution in this discussion, or is everybody happy that we're doing a lot of work together? I know we can go through our RLTP and support ETs, LTP, RLTP. So are we happy where everything is, or do we need a resolution to bolster that? There's a lot of work already being done, and Vishal and everybody.
Yeah, I for one would like a resolution, especially recognising the part that Andy does play on Future-Proof and Future-Proof PT Subcommittee, and that he would be involved in any conversations with ourselves in Auckland Transport. I think that would really add weight to what we're trying to achieve here. And just in the spirit of collaboration and working together, that we do highlight that. So if someone could come up with some wording, great.
I haven't got the wording, so.
Phil, why don't we work on the wording and then you can carry on?
David had a
Oh,
question.
David, sorry, David.
I was more or less going to raise the same thing Eugene did. I guess more specifically, I'd be really keen to see or have some confidence that the business case is not just considering, can we have another stop for Te Huia, but actually that those stops are in the context of Auckland Transport and Te Huia. And what Angus's point about those extra lines, because I think that whole business case on its own for another stop for Te Huia probably won't succeed. A wider business case, much better chance.
Cool, thank you. Andy.
Yeah, just and I guess looking at the stops thing, how we integrate into what Te Huia does, because and I'm not sure the visibility, but the planning in Drury is for potentially a large southern hospital which will service the North Waikato, and so and parts of the Hauraki and stuff, and so suddenly does Drury become another stop for Te Huia for the people in Waikato to access a hospital that the northern Waikato that has been built for, and so will been planned for. So there's so many balls in the air and we just got to get it right. And so great to hear, Angus. And I was just looking for your email address, mate, because I want to talk about about the fourth main, because it is incredibly important. So yeah, good to hear.
Yeah, we can do. Why don't we take a tea break, 5 minutes? Yeah, you're welcome to pop through. You can go through this way if you want a cup of tea, biscuit. Then we'll come back. 10:35. Thank you.